Hey, everybody. Welcome back to our now newly named podcast, The Catholic Syndrome. Today, I have with me Carlos, who is a seminarian here in our Diocese of Monterey. And we're here to talk about being Catholic, why we're Catholic, and other stuff like that. So, Carlos, please introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, what you do.
Hello, thank you for having me. Yes, like you said, Scott, I'm a seminarian here for the Diocese of Monterey. I am currently on my pastoral year serving at Madonna del Sasso Parish in Salinas. And this is the first time in my life, actually, that I'm living in a regular parish.
Oh,
Background is that my Catholic experience has been in chapels in the military. With my father being in the Air Force, I grew up in that, and then I joined the Army myself, so it continued to be in the chapels. So when I discerned and was getting ready for or preparing for holy orders, this internship is really my first experience being in a quote unquote normal parish during COVID and all the restrictions that go with that.
yeah. Wow. That is fascinating. I never dealt a lot with military growing up, but
Mhm.
now I know I have two people very close to me in the Navy. One of my best friends, Brennan, works for the Navy. He does like IT and tech stuff, radio frequency stuff, and then a whole lot of other mumbo jumbo. He's not allowed to tell me. And then my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, is also in the Navy, and they're actually out in Virginia Beach right now. So that's the closest I have to military stuff. But okay, tell me about that. We'll touch on a lot of that, but tell me about what it's like growing up. What's it like a military brat, right? Something like that. And
Right. So
especially going to like Catholic chapels there. Here they still have like youth groups and confirmation programs on base.
absolutely. The so I was born at Edwards Air Force Base down in Southern California. It's about 2 hours north of Los Angeles in the Mojave Desert.
Okay.
And um, for whatever reason, I lived there my whole life. I was born there and graduated high school there. So the chapel there is my home parish, but it's really just a chapel. I grew up with military chaplains as the priests that served the
Mhm.
community, and yes, we did have CCD on Sunday mornings. We had masses. I think daily mass was in the morning, so I was never able to go because of school. But we did have youth groups, and one particular thing that I naturally, I guess it was just a part of my upbringing, but I'm realizing that it's not so much for everybody else, was that I also attended youth groups for the Protestant youth groups that they had. And they also, they would have their own kind of programming. So yes, we would go in high school to the youth day that they had in Anaheim for the Congress, but we would also go to different conferences and stuff that they had for the Protestant youth.
Oh, that's super interesting. Why did you go
Mhm.
to the other denominations youth groups? Was it just like a bigger, more entertaining kind of thing?
Well, there definitely is a more striving for an entertainment value, I think, in the in the
Yeah, it's a little bit that way. It feels at times.
realm. They get it for music and for just putting on the show to keep you uh, entertained or in
Keep you on
the
that Jesus high.
absolutely. But I found that I would do it just because a lot of my friends were there too. So I would have Catholic friends and Protestant friends. So we would kind of just go to each other's things. So it was, well, for one, we were kind of out in the middle of nowhere in the
Yeah.
desert in California. So it was just an excuse to get out and go somewhere, whether it was Anaheim, so close to Disneyland, or to Big Bear, beautiful, the mountains. Um,
Okay, yeah, that's super interesting. Um, we're that's funny because we're kind of similar and opposite. So it's not every day you hear about somebody who was in the military family that didn't move around every like 3 or 4 years.
mhm, mhm,
Because I have that here in Monterey, like the city of Monterey at San Carlos, we get so many military family and sometimes even have military kids in my program for confirmation. And, they're there for 3, 4 years and then they're gone. You never hear from them again.
mhm.
Or even when I first got here, there was like a small budding young adult program that started, but the two people running it were a military couple. And once they graduated from NPS, they were gone, and the leadership was gone. And so it's funny though, you never moved around, but as a kid, I moved like 5 or 6 times. And I've had people be like, "Oh, military." And I'm like, "Nope, we just moved." But I went to all those same things. I grew up in Orange County, like a half hour south of Disneyland. So we were probably at the same LA Youth Days and like Steubenville, San Diego, and other stuff like that. But okay, so we know a little bit about you, but as a seminarian, I think people have a lot of like ideas in their own heads about that. And so what I first want to start off before I ask you just seminarian questions is first though, just what do you do for fun? Because I think people think about a seminarian, somebody who's about to be a priest, a little like, stick in the mud a little bit. And they think that you're like, that's your whole persona. That's like everything you are is like priesthood and like being good and godly. But like, what do you do for fun? What do you do besides that?
So outside of crawling into the cave and just reading the Bible for hours on end, I like to. It's such a blessing to be here in the Diocese of Monterey because we have places for hiking like the Pinnacles National Park or Jack's Peak on the way to Monterey. I have yet to go to a couple of the other trails on Fort Ord or something, but I do enjoy the outdoors and going hiking a lot, and then also the water. But I'm learning that it's very cold in the Pacific Ocean in Monterey, so
I'm yeah,
figuring out how to get into that.
Yeah, when people at the Dual Language Institute and at NPS and other stuff, and they're not from California, the first question I asked them is, "How excited were you when you found out you were going to like California to a coastal town?" They're like, "Oh man, it sounded so cool. I was so excited." I was like, "And then what was it like when you came here and you found out that like you can't go swimming because of like whirlpools and sharks and it's cold?" And they're like, "Yeah, that part sucked."
Yep. We're just gonna be surfing the whole time.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, dude, and it never gets over like 64 degrees here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like the part of California you never expect.
Yep.
So, okay, you mentioned you're in the military, and I'm somebody that could never join the military because I am way too short and way too little. I would never survive it. So, what was your journey like, though, from the military to where you are now in the seminary? Like, are the two interconnected? Was that a plan, or was there just crazy divine intervention in there?
Yes, on all accounts, yes.
Awesome.
So I do have maybe like the anecdote of, in high school, there was, at the time, Cardinal Mahoney out in the youth day and in Congress, he asked people, to pray for vocations. And if there was anybody, thinking about it. And then, so I was the sucker that raised my hand and they called me and did special prayer and all that stuff.
I was the kid that never raised their hand. It was down to the ground.
For as much of an introvert as I am, I decided to raise my hand for that moment. But so it was always something that was in my mind, or an option of like, oh, I could, be a priest one day, but I never thought of like acting on it. It was always just, maybe I could join the military or, go to be a teacher, yada, yada, yada. And then the bottom of the list was, oh, maybe be a priest. So I went to college for a few years and then I joined the Army myself. I enlisted, and it was really during a deployment to Iraq that I saw the need for priests in a special way because I would meet people, soldiers that were really on the front lines doing whatever their job was in Iraq. And because they were doing their jobs, they weren't able to come back to the main like supply place, or they'd be out there for a month or two at a time. And seeing the things that they're seeing, they were not able to, go to confession or have any sacraments or anything like that. So that's really where I saw the first time, because you always hear, oh, there's such a need for priests. We don't have any priests.
Yeah, you hear it everywhere all the time. Vocations week and mass.
So that was the first time that I was like, really, there are people that need the sacraments and they're not available to them. So that was really where the Holy Spirit was punching through and say, hey, this is something that might be for you. And
okay.
Long story short, I was I am very blessed to have had Bishop Richard Garcia invite me to study for the Diocese of Monterey. Because growing up in the military, I don't have any contacts or family in this local area.
Yeah.
But by the grace of God, I've been led to one of the most beautiful places on the planet.
Yeah, it's gorgeous here. That's amazing. Can I ask, what year were you deployed?
So my first deployment was 2009,
Oh,
10, no, 2010, 11, and then 2012, no, 13, 14, and then 2015. Yeah, so there were 3 different ones.
oh, okay. Were those 6 or 9-month deployments?
One was 9 months, one was a year, one was 9 months, one was 6 months.
Oh, okay. And that's
All
like
over
all my knowledge from military after that.
No, but I got to see the world in a weird way because I was only stationed really in Texas and in Kansas, but having deployments to Iraq, to Afghanistan, and to Central America. So
Yeah. Wait, what part of Kansas?
Fort Riley, Kansas is like bullseye dead center of the United States of America. Boom.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay. I was born in Kansas City, so I always like to ask when it gets
Okay.
brought up. Yeah, but I
Kansas
moved here to
City-
California. I was only 4, so I'm not like a Kansan or anything, but I'm a huge Chiefs fan.
Yeah. So we were out of the middle. We were out in
You're in the middle of nowhere, man.
literally the middle of the United States, and we would drive out to Kansas City on the weekends to go.
Yeah, the only part of Kansas City that matters really is Kansas City. Let's just be honest. There's a whole lot of nothing else in the state. I have family in Manhattan, Kansas.
Yeah.
And I was like, one day I was like, where is that? And so I looked it up. And if you probably from where you were, if you just go straight up to the border of Nebraska, they're like 5 minutes from the Nebraska border in the middle of the state. And I was like, oh, that looks like that sucks. No, that's so interesting. Because a lot of people, and admittedly myself, we look at, oh, there's this need for priest. Oh man, if only there was somebody to do that. Like, oh man, I could be doing that, but I'm not. Like, oh, like I have that capability, but I don't want to do it. Like I had a time where I considered the priesthood. It was a little slight. I just heard the term, I guess, phrase that, you should be considering the religious life until the day you say I do. And I was like, oh, really? That's interesting. Because it was like, oh, you never know if you're called, like, even if you're in a relationship, you could be called to the priesthood. And it was when I was a missionary in Wisconsin for a group called Spiritus. All the other guys and I, the girls lived in one house and us men lived in another, but we were in a rectory with 2 priests. And that's where I got to really learn a lot about the priesthood. And the interesting thing for me was the more I learned about the priesthood, the less it appealed to me. Like, and the biggest part of it was doing the hours, was doing liturgy of the hours. And I was like, wait, I gotta wake up like 5 a.m. and pray, and I go have mass, and then I gotta do more in the afternoon and in the evening, and then before bed, and like at midnight, and like this at Easter. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And it made that desire that I'd always had to be a father and a husband even stronger. And it made me realize that, oh, well, I wouldn't have had those desires, for nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. So divine providence showed on me very vividly when I was able to end my contract in the with active duty. July of 2016, my contract ended, and August 5th of the following month, I was already in seminary. Everything landed so seamlessly that it was kind of just a path that I feel was meant.
Yeah, wow, like no break, just hitting the ground running. That's really impressive. So how far into it are you? At what like point? I guess because there's like the divinity 1 and 2 and other stuff like that.
It seems like every seminarian has his own custom, obviously, vocation, but in how it goes into getting to priesthood is all these wacky ways. And
yeah, some people it's like 4 years, others 8, some 6.
Exactly. So my program, I finished a bachelor's degree while I was in the Army.
Okay.
So I graduated from Wayland Baptist University with a mathematics degree. And was able to use that to apply straight to the seminary. And at St. John's down in Camarillo, I have 7 years of study. So right now I'm in year 5.
Okay, and you're still down there at St. John's?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
right now I'm in Salinas for the year as internship, and then I'll
Oh,
go
right.
back 2 more years to wrap it up, Lord willing.
Man, I never realized until I got into ministry how many of our priests just go to St. John's.
Oh, really?
Father Hasson went there.
Mm-hmm.
Father Omar, pretty sure went there.
He went to St. Patrick's.
Oh, St. Patrick's. Okay.
Yeah.
Father Dewey down in Orange County, where I'm from, my home parish, San Francisco Solano, went there. I think my old boss, Father Michael St. Paul, went there. Father,
So
I think even
classmate is he's an intern at St. Francis of Solano.
Yeah, San Francisco Solano. That's where I went. That's right at everything.
Yeah, one of my classmates is there this year for his internship.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So like I'm just like I'll post something and some other priest I know on Facebook's like, hey, like I know that guy, and I'm like, how? Like you're like 400 miles apart. Like we went to school, we went to seminary, and I'm like, aren't there like more?
No, there's only 3 on the whole West Coast.
which is crazy to me. I always thought that there was like a seminary for each like diocese, you know, and some of the dioceses are so small, like LA, Orange, and San Diego, that I wouldn't be surprised if they shared 1 or 2. But I'm thinking like, we got like San Francisco right next to us, and then Monterey, and even Sacramento, like figured there'd be a seminary like right around there to go to. So it's really interesting. So what's it like with you living and studying with so many other men that you're not going to eventually work with? You get so close, you do form like a brotherhood, a fraternity in a way. And then what's it like when you see them go and you're like, well, like have fun, and like in San Diego, have fun, in Arizona or somewhere.
Well, after you say deuces for a little bit, it's not always for a long time, because different events, even like the RE Congress, it seems to be like a big old reunion for different people.
That's true. That's very true.
Sisters and priests and even the catechists all know each other in this big web of craziness. But I think that it's good for us to have those connections, because even though there are priests in Monterey, Lord willing, when I'm ordained, there's only going to be 2 other guys that are newly ordained with me. So we're going to, it's not very likely we're going to be very close either. But there's going to be all these guys that are going through the same thing, more or less, that we can kind of reach out to when we get into I don't want to say a hot spot, but if there's something we're trying to figure out, maybe they've already been there.
Yeah, that's a good point. And even too, in certain dioceses like ours, it's so huge. I mean, it's like Santa Cruz, you're just like right south of San Jose, all the way to SLO. So even if you're like, yeah, we're both in the same diocese, they could be in SLO and you're in Monterey, and it's like, cool, we're 2.5 hours away.
Exactly.
My gosh. So, all right, that's astounding though, hearing that like you saw that need in this place like Afghanistan, like in wartime. And so then what was there though that moment with like that extra kind of push, something that put you over the edge, or was it more just the accumulation of all those smaller experiences?
So it's definitely been a journey that once I started thinking about it in Iraq, I did go to a priest in Manhattan, Kansas, St. Isidore's at K-State University.
Hey.
And he gave me some good advice of, well, if this is something that you're thinking about doing, try, living in that kind of a way, like to start to pray these things of the Liturgy of the Hours. Not the whole thing all at once, but just do it once, whenever you have time, or start going to adoration and just start living, in a way that you see the priests are living. And then for me, it was the opposite. The more I was exposed to it, the more I was like, hey, this is something for me.
Yeah. That's pretty telling of a sign right there. If you're exposed to it and you like it, if you don't like it, well.
But it is something for patience, because from that moment that I talked to that priest, it still had been 6 more years later that I was actually entering the seminary.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a decision you just make rashly or quickly.
Mhm.
I think when people are like, think you have the aha moments, like, I'm gonna be a priest, and like, I need to find the vocations director right now and like get to it, or like, like I need to find like a second, like I need to do something. And it's not that. Like God's time is so completely different from ours. And so
Mhm.
to him, 6 years was just like nothing. And even looking back, it's like, wow, 6 years already?
Yeah. You spend so much time asking, oh God, what do you want me to do? Tell me, tell me, tell me. And then it's like, well,
Well, you spend your whole time being like, oh, that job looks really cool. Yeah. So for anybody listening in, ask God. And if you're thinking like, wow, all of that sounds really cool, you might be called to be a priest or a nun or whatever else. It's great. We do need more religious. I am sorry I was not called to be a religious, but I'm glad somebody like you was. But do you feel like maybe you should be a military chaplain with your experience and your childhood like that, or are you all militaried out?
well, that's the other half of my formation is that I am sponsored by the Monterey Diocese, but I'm also co-sponsored with the military archdiocese. So what that means is that 3 years after ordination, I can be released from Monterey to go active duty back into the army.
Okay, wow.
Mhm.
And so if you were to do that, um, would you what are your options like? Is it just being, the chaplain on base and doing that, or is it actually being out in the field and providing mass, to troops? Or is it just like you have to still be active duty to maybe do something like that?
So once Lord willing, I'm ordained 2023. I'll be assigned to a parish here in Monterey, wherever
Mhm.
the good Bishop Garcia sends me. I'll be there for 3 years and get the experience of a whole, liturgical year,
Yeah.
all 3 years. And then after that, I'll go and be active duty. The Army's chaplaincy is that you're first assigned to a unit and you just go wherever that unit is. If they're in the
Oh,
field, you're in the field. If they're not
wow.
in, you're not in the field. But because there's such a need for Catholic priests, every Sunday I'll still be at the chapel to do the mass for the community there for whatever base I'm assigned to.
Okay, wow. So even if that base is like overseas, you'd still be doing that same kind of thing.
Yep. Anyway, and in that regard is wherever the Army sends you.
Okay, wow, that is super fascinating. I think that's something a lot of people, no matter their age in the church, don't know about because I don't think people are thinking about it. Like I
Mhm.
said, I grew up with zero military exposure. I just knew, some of my friends had like a sibling 7 years older than us who was like in the army, or just somebody
Mhm.
who talked about one day joining the military after high school or something, but like never any real exposure. So I think most people are like that and don't really realize that that option even exists and the need for it.
And there's so much need for it, as definitely in all of the branches. The Navy is
Mhm.
really does need a lot of priests. The Air Force, I think they're, I wouldn't want to say okay because a lot of their priests are retiring, but
Mm.
in the military there are so many like job opportunities that you can kind of find your way anywhere as long as you can handle the military side of things.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that. Luckily, my buddy, he got a pretty high score in the ASDAV. ASDAT.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Okay.
as bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he was basically able to kind of pick what he wanted. But I've always heard too, the best advice if you are going to join the military is go in knowing what you want to do. Don't just let them choose your job. How accurate is that advice?
You got to advocate for yourself. I think that's a life lesson more so than just the
Yeah,
military.
of course.
If you let somebody else make the decisions, they'll definitely make them for you.
Yeah, come join us. You get to see the world, and you're stuck at a base in Kansas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kansas isn't all that bad though, because one of my heroes uh, originally came from Kansas, Father Emil Capon. There's a cause for his sainthood, so I think he's at the blessed level now. But he originally is from Kansas, but he has this beautiful heroic story of being a prisoner of war in the Korean conflict and eventually died out there.
Oh wow, that's astounding. I don't mean to knock
Mm-hmm.
on Kansas or anybody. Like I said, I was born there. I love Kansas and KU, go Jayhawks, and the Chiefs, and the Royals. So I love Kansas, but I also am aware that most of Kansas is a whole lot of nothing. But and
Yeah.
so is California, and that's okay.
California is just so big that there can't be.
Yeah, once you go north of LA and once you go like south of San Francisco, there's a whole lot of nothing. Monterey's just like a little dot there.
Yeah. I like Monterey because it's like this gem where you're not gonna be there unless you're intentionally trying to make it there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm only here because of my wife. We did the long distance thing for a year and a half. And 6 months of that was when she went to Cal State Monterey Bay, and I had my first ministry job in Orange. And she's like, I'm gonna go to Cal State Monterey Bay. And I'm like, oh, okay, where's that? In Monterey. And I'm like, cool. Where's that? And she was like, Pebble Beach. I'm like, I know Pebble Beach, but I don't know where Pebble Beach is. And then like after driving up and visiting her a few times here, I was like, oh, like I get it. Like, oh, I know where I'm at now. It took a couple of trips up here to really understand it. And you're totally right. You don't go here unless you really know you're going to go here.
It's not a pit stop, even if you're on your way to San Francisco or opposite.
No, like you stop in Santa Cruz, So, yeah. All right. So, speaking of your Catholic faith, you've probably been to a lot of different people in the military. I think there's a lot of stereotypes, and some of them are true for maybe people I've run into in the military, and some of them are definitely not true. Like people like you and my brother-in-law who are men of faith that are out there fighting and not falling into the stereotypical, hyper masculine role of the military. And so, what I want to ask you though, as somebody who is Catholic and probably had to defend their Catholic faith, during active duty and in boot camp and everything else in between those two things, what would you say to somebody who maybe was never Catholic, and what if they asked you, why should I be Catholic? Somebody your age that came up to you, what would your answer be for a question like that?
I would share how my faith has been it's been the foundation that it doesn't matter where I've been or like where I'm assigned or what I'm doing. I know that that's the one constant in my life that will always be there. That just my experience of the relationship that I have with God, with Jesus Christ, is that it is something that's not a esoteric, like throwing a coin down a well and making your wish to see whatever you want. That it is something that it is that I've had to work at. It's not something that comes easy, but it's something that has held me through not only basic training and the hardships of being away from family, but also being shot at by different various weapons. And it's just something that I can always turn to and know that it is the truth. And there's a comfort in knowing that I can access that no matter where I am.
Yeah, I think if you get shot at by multiple different people and weapons and you're not praying, there's something wrong with you.
Foxhole conversations are quite the event, yes.
It makes me think about, in a much less life-threatening situation. I spent a summer in Alaska working for a fishing company, and I roomed with three other guys. One guy from Oakland, a doctor from Romania, and another guy who was very Mormon, as Mormon as I am Catholic, from Idaho. And we were just, out there in Alaska working 16-hour days for a fishing company. And you end up just having a lot to talk about when you're working with the same people for 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I can imagine like your foxhole conversations. At one point, we had like exhausted every other topic, every video game we've ever played, where we're from, what our family life is like. And he goes, so you're Catholic? Tell me about it. And I was like, really? You want to do this? He was like, I think we're past the point where politics and religion will upset us. So I was like, all right, let's talk religion.
That's what you do, is get a captive audience that cannot escape, and then you can share it.
Yeah, exactly. Where you're just stuck and you're like, all right, got nothing else to do. Yeah. And I think a lot of people too, that might ask a question like that. Whether they are or not Catholic, the why be Catholic question, a lot of times I think they're looking for like a specific proof in a way. They're
Hmm.
like, you know, they might say to you like, oh, that's nice that you get comfort from that. Or like, I get comfort from, you know, being out in the woods and wilderness. I love hiking and I feel a calmness from that. And sometimes they're looking for like more than that. What might be a response for you, whether as a seminarian or you know, even personally? What might be something else a little more concrete you give to somebody, you know, even somebody listening now when they're
Hmm.
asking, you know, for that kind of more specific answer?
I would say that that's very much where that faith comes alive. Exactly what you're saying, that that awe or that inspiration that we get in nature, that that something bigger, that you can sit on the coastland here at in Monterey and Big Sur, anywhere in between on Highway 1, that you can look out at the ocean and just see that insignificant feeling that I'm so small and this thing is so huge
Yeah.
that I can tap into something that's even bigger or greater in that, in my Lord.
Okay. That made me feel calm.
Mm-hmm.
Look at you, almost Father Carlos. All right. All right. Can't wait for your homilies.
That's definitely something I need to work on for sure.
Oh, really? How are your public speaking skills? How do you do with that?
Well, I'm told that I'm a conversational or easy listening homily, but all my homily experience so far at Madonna del Sasso has been to a camera without people in the actual church.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Okay. So that leads me, that's a really good segue into my next question. I was debating about bringing up COVID and a COVID kind of question, but you did it first, so I can't be blamed now. So
My bad,
with
your
what was that?
is my bad your fault.
Yeah, exactly. So with this world of COVID, you're getting a very different experience in the seminary, of course, but then as well, the laity are getting a very different church experience.
Yes.
What are ways that you think that the church, you know, during all this, whether it's specifically Madonna del Sasso or just the church in general, has been doing, you know, doing something good, move forward during this time to reach the laity? And then what maybe are some ways we're lacking? And I feel like, gosh, I feel like I'm a little like harsh on this because I can always point out more of the things we could be doing more, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
But what about you? What are things you're seeing? Like I said, specifically at Madonna del Sasso or in general, you see the churches doing well, they're changing.
Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure our evangelizing or our outreach has totally dramatically changed. The live stream that we have for our daily masses and even for the Sunday mass. For Sunday mass, our little parking lot chapel that we have set up can have, on the average of 50 to 75 people
Oh, great.
for a mass. But when we live stream it, I've gone to the Facebook and the YouTube streams of those masses, and they've been viewed hundreds of times, sometimes over
Right.
thousands of times. So who's to say that a lot of the responses and stuff that come in the comments, especially for the daily mass, people that are watching those videos aren't even Catholic. So we have somebody that's monitoring the channels to be able to respond and say, hey, this, you know, welcome, and this is what this is about. So that evangelization, and it's greater than even the Salinas area, because somebody in Florida could be saying that question whenever they stumble upon it or on YouTube.
Yeah, my wife and I, most weekends, were like, "Hey, where do you want to watch mass?" And the question isn't like what specific parish;
Yeah,
it's like a place. You know, we've
literally.
watched Vegas, Denver is our favorite one when we're in a rush because they have like 25-minute masses on Sundays. Everybody check out Archdiocese of Denver. um,
Yeah, the cathedral,
um,
I've been there too.
yeah, we've done the National Shrine of Divine Mercy, the National Shrine in DC, St. Patrick's in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
We've done one in Canada.
Yeah.
We're trying to do like ones in Europe even.
Yeah. So
We did Father Rob Gallia in Australia.
awesome.
Yeah,
There's
so
this.
you're right. Like there's such a larger reach now.
Mm-hmm. Our Lady of Walsingham Shrine in England, they have a great priest out there. So if you want to
Oh, Our Lady of what?
Walsingham, she's
Oh,
a
how do you spell that?
Walsingham. The
Oh,
seminarian devotion that even throughout all of the Anglican back and forthness of the church, this devotion and this Catholic church had stayed through the whole thing. So it's a very good foundation for the Catholic faith in England.
oh, that's great. Okay, I'll check that out.
You can mark England off of your list.
Yeah, it's a new country, new continent.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Yeah, and
But
so I'm glad to hear that like we didn't have to change much. Like still greeting, saying hi to people is so effective, and now that happens more than just the people that purposefully walk through the doors on Sunday at 10:30 a.m.
yes,
It can happen at any time of the day now, any day of the week.
that's true. So that's one way that the relevancy has kind of changed or shifted, or I don't know how to explain it that much. But one of the areas definitely that I'm feeling the need, or a lot of people are realizing how important the spiritual life is in the medical field, because
Mm-hmm.
they're not only are the healthcare providers go 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 without any break, but they see how important it is for these men and women that are suffering to not be alone in their death.
Oh yeah, it's astounding. I had my grandmother died of lung cancer right after I graduated from high school, and she had been living with us for the past 7-8 months of that, basically from like the new year till she passed in that July of 2010. And besides just being hard to watch that and go through that, watch my grandmother to do that, um, the priest from the parish I got confirmed at, and my mom sang at, Father Reynolds, shout out to him at Holy Trinity. He came to her. She was a woman, Italian, New Yorker, Catholic, who it's it was just cultural to her at a certain point. Like I think it is for a lot of people. But seeing her there, and he would come once a week, and he offered her anointing of the sick, would do confessions, and her first one like 30 years or something like that, and being with her up until close to the last moments. It's not until you actually see it or experience it, um, even just through like pictures or videos that are so available now online. It's not until you get that you understand that importance. People say like, oh, they'll come back for the sacraments, but they have to see the importance of the sacraments. Like in a moment like that really brought it home for me at that young age too.
Absolutely. There's just that connection of the physical body and the spiritual. It's what makes you you. And then once you die, and then it's just the body. It's such a, I mean, it's something inevitable for everybody has to contemplate that. We can't run away from it, but it's also something that it doesn't have to be an ugly experience or something that is so horrific, that when you can be with loved ones and you can rest in peace, that there's a beautiful comfort that can come out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. That made me think about something Father Patrick from my parish says. He loves the Hail Mary. He loves devotions to Mary. And he loves it because at the very end of the prayer, the Hail Mary, we ask her, pray for us now and at the hour of our death. And he says, they're the only two times in our lives we can be sure of. Right now, the present, and the day we die, the two inevitables. And like that always hit me the first time I heard him say that in homily. And he's said it plenty of other times since working at the parish and living here. And it's true. Those are the only times we know for sure. Like we were born, we have right now, and then we have the moment where we will inevitably die. And those are the times to surround yourself with loved ones and the love of God, the sacraments, the church, because you don't know sometimes you don't know when the moment of death will be. And so why not be prepared to be surrounded always by love?
Absolutely. And as a Lord willing, as a priest, to be able to journey with families in that time, would just to be able to offer at least not even spiritual guidance, but just that presence, to be able to be there with people. That's one of the things, Lord willing, that I'm looking forward to, because yes, as a family, there's that experience, but also on the other side of my life in the military, there's all these different customs and traditions and things that
Yeah.
respecting the life of somebody is also a big part of that.
Yeah. It's it's a big topic to cover. Luckily, though, nothing is too big for our God, even for that. Okay, well, there's one last question I want to ask you that relates more back to the why should I be Catholic question. And so with that one, I kind of framed it as somebody who like never was Catholic, you know, who was like wondering. But we do have a lot of people who are Catholic or well were Catholic and now aren't. My mother-in-law is like that, and she is somebody who feels like she's been hurt by the church. She went to a private Catholic school, and she has the stereotypical story of like the mean nuns that hit you with a ruler. And then she met Sister Sharon McMillan, who I'm sure you know, Sister Sharon. No?
I don't think,
Oh,
not yet.
she'll eventually teach you. I promise you, she'll eventually teach you.
I'm so sheltered in my COVID experience that I really haven't even seen very many other parishes or anybody.
If you end up doing any classes through Santa Clara or you get far enough in liturgy or the Eucharist, you will be taught by Sister Sharon, let me tell you. Okay. But Sister Sharon is the opposite of the stereotype I was just telling you about. And I remember when they met, like I think they just met at my wedding, my mother-in-law and her. And Sister Sharon was the person that got my wife into her RCIA classes and taught them, and became such good friends. She still is like part-time liturgist at St. Carlos Cathedral, and she sang at our wedding, and she's just so nice and sweet and all this other stuff. And I just like, and telling my mother-in-law about it, she's like, okay. You can see like she almost doesn't believe in them meeting her. She's like, she is so lovely. And so there's a lot of people that have stereotypes of religious or even just Catholics in general. And so to somebody who maybe has been hurt by the church, and maybe they're listening and maybe they are just because, but you know, what do you say to somebody who used to be Catholic but was hurt by the church, and you know, why should they return? You know, like the why be Catholic again kind of question. Because I feel like that's going to be asked of you as a priest eventually, especially because of what people are going to stereotype you as hopefully one day an ordained priest.
I would just first things that come to my mind are just to share my own experiences, because the same kind of stereotypes are, I guess, given for the older school nuns that would hit people with rulers and stuff like that. But I grew up with a community of sisters down in Los Angeles. Well, they serve Los Angeles, Orange, San Bernardino area, the Sacred Heart Sisters. That
oh my gosh, I love them. I worked with them too in college.
Every single one of them is such a beautiful treasure that we have, that really I attribute a lot of my vocation to them, because Sister Deborah I know she's been praying for me to be a priest ever since I was 7 years old.
Oh, that's so sweet.
But she's endured it, because 30 years later we're still trucking along.
Hey, God's time.
But I would just you can't really meet any of the stereotypes with it if you approach it by pure statistics and say, yes, that happened, but that's such a minute experience in the church that I don't want to say that you're downplaying the experience of that person that's been hurt. But
of course not.
Just to offer them examples in your own experience of love, that love is really, the source of it is God. It's not you or anything else. That's what you plug into, and that's what we're invited to within the Catholic Church.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that. Because I feel like that's a topic that doesn't get tackled a whole lot. At least I know I didn't start to think about it until it was asked of me in one of my classes a year and a half or so ago. You know, what do you do when somebody has been hurt by the church and their only option for reconciliation, you know, literally through the sacrament or figuratively, is to go through a priest?
Is that same church. That's like just telling on your boss that your boss sucks.
Yeah, exactly. It's like being fired by your boss and then going out for drinks afterwards and talking about how much you hate your boss to your boss.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's difficult, and it's a reality that exists, you know. And you're right, we can't downplay or say, well, look at the statistics. So like it's not a big deal. You can't say those things.
Mhm.
And it's something that has to be tackled by, priests, other religious, and the laity can as well. And I think it it's even more moving and empowering when somebody who has been hurt and has found reconciliation can speak of it too. Like a not so similar situation, but I was bullied all through middle school by this one kid who will rename nameless. Um, and it continued a bit into high school, but then the school was bigger, so it was easier to just get away from him and not hang out. And then later on, my high school was weird. We had a 5-year reunion. We also have a 10-year that got ruined by COVID, so hopefully it's this next summer. But we had a 5-year. I've never heard of that before. And if you ever have anybody listening, if you ever have a 5-year high school reunion, feel free to go, but just know that when you do and you ask anybody like, oh, what are you doing? Well, 5 years after high school, you're either about to finish college, have finished college, or about to start school again in your master's. Those are the only 3 answers you will get. And there's the rare fourth, I'm going to finally graduate from community college this year. That's the rare fourth answer. But it was there where it was him and a couple other people that we used to hang out with in middle school. And I was like, hey guys, it's been a long time. They're like, oh my gosh. And then eventually it's just the 2 of us. And he finally, I just sat there like looking at him, my old bully. And he's just sitting there holding his beer. He goes, man, I was a douche to you. And I was like, continue. I was like,
Oh, tell me
yeah.
more.
and there was a reconciliation there. And now I have the opportunity to talk to people who have been hurt in, a multitude of ways and say it can happen. The bully, the hurter can recognize what they've done. It exists. It's real. But when they ask you, hey, do you want to be friends again and hang out sometime? You are allowed to say no, because that's what I did.
Exactly.
I told them, like, listen, I have zero intention of being friends with you. But if I ever run into you on the street, God knows how. But if I ever do, I'd be more than happy to sit down and have a beer with you again. But I'm not about to schedule a hangout. But it can be done. And that's just a small example, though, of love. And today, even though back then in middle school, I would have called him the devil and he's evil and he has no love within him. He doesn't represent the church, because this all happened at a Catholic school, too. And he went to my same church, and I had confirmation classes with him in high school. It was like, I can't get away from him. I now have no doubt, though, that he represented for me in a small way the church and the church that had hurt me in that way. But he refound that love. And now I'm sure that even though I haven't talked to him in 5 years, I'm sure that he is a devoutly good Catholic man, attending mass the best he can during COVID. And when he one day, God willing, has a family, he's going to raise them Catholic to the best of their ability and help them learn from his mistakes. And I have no doubt about that from the person who hurt me so badly.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful. And when you're talking about that, I'm thinking of how much division there is, even just on the United States. There's with politics and everything happening.
Yes.
There's a big thing that this conversation is showing that there is room for healing. Because there is division. That doesn't mean we can't respect each other. That it doesn't mean that there isn't room for repentance. That's not what we're about. We're about unity and being able to work with each other.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, that's so important. All right, so before we go, I feel like we've hit on a lot of good topics that leave a lot of room to think. So I don't want to keep this going on for too long. But before we end and close in prayer, which I would ask you to lead if you don't mind. But do you have any shout outs you want to do, or any other projects you're involved in, or just something you want to give a shout out to before we go?
I guess I just want to make a plea for anybody that's listening to this to just pray for vocations. That that's not a a one-sided street to say we need more priests, we need more priests, we need more priests, we need more young sisters, we need more men and women that are faithful to their marriage vows. We just need people to find their vocations, because really a vocation is just our way towards heaven. It's our way to be able to connect to God.
Absolutely.
So to pray for vocations is really praying for each other, but in a special way, to be able to just have that intention, however it comes out.
Absolutely. Yeah. I always tell my teens, either at my parish or when I'm leading a different retreat, that my vocation isn't being a youth minister. My vocation is to instruct and teach the youth. And that could have happened in a multitude of jobs. My job isn't my vocation. My vocation is my calling. And so I could have still been instructing the youth as a priest, as a soccer coach, as a film director, as a high school teacher, and as a youth minister. So my vocation doesn't necessarily determine my job. What was that?
As a jail warden, for that matter.
It's a jail warden, exactly. There are so many different ways you can achieve your vocation. It's not just your job. And I think that's important to know. Okay, so please, if you wouldn't mind closing us out in prayer.
Sure thing. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the life that you give us, and the breath that is a blessing. It's a gift from you to be able to return it to you with love and with gratitude for everything that you do for us. Please bless us and protect us, especially in this time of pandemic and this time of division, that the path to you is a path of unity and a path of forgiveness, a path of love. Please help us to recognize that and also to share it with others. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. So thank you so much, Carlos, for joining us. And thank you, everybody, for listening in. Remember, you can find us on Spotify and Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. I think anywhere you find podcasts. Correct me if I'm wrong, Samuel, but we're basically everywhere. So follow us there. Please join us on Facebook if you have one, to keep up to date with everything going on in the diocese for youth and young adult events. And we are praying for you. And we hope you have a great day after listening to this. So thank you all so much. Bye, everybody.
God bless.